So let's jump right in, and I want to ask you a simple question. What's the difference between this drawing and this one? Or this one and this one? The answer is the use of very dark values, or even black. If I could share just one piece of advice with those of you who are learning to draw, it would be this: go darker. Don't be afraid to go really dark with your shading. Now, I'm not suggesting you turn everything into a moody, dramatic piece of art with very little light areas. That's not what we're after. What I mean is to think about using a full range of values. Because drawings are in black and white, we can't rely on colour to show depth, and so it's all about mastering the art of value. But what exactly does a full range of values mean for your drawing? Well, it means that unless your subject is dramatically lit, say with a spotlight, or if there's hardly any light at all, in any other situation, your drawing should include some white, a bunch of greys, and a touch of black. Now, you'd be surprised how many drawings I come across from art students that are just a sea of grey. Sometimes they have a little bit of white, sometimes too much white, but often they're missing that crucial black element. So why is it so important to add black? Well, an overly grey drawing becomes a problem if you want your artwork to look three-dimensional. And you might not be aiming for a hyper-realistic masterpiece, but I bet you want your drawing to have some depth, to have impact, and to look somewhat realistic. Well, here's a secret I share with my students. For something to appear three-dimensional in a drawing, it needs at least 3 different values. Why is that? Well, it's all about how light hits form. If you take a simple sphere, for instance, without any play of light, it's just a flat circle. But once you introduce light from one direction, you'll have a light area, a dark area, and a range of shades in between. Now, those in-between greys can be quite tricky to differentiate, but the brightest part and the darkest part, they're pretty easy to see if you look carefully. By the way, this is something I frequently emphasize in my Sketch Club tutorials. So if you're interested in honing your drawing skills through regular practice and feedback, do check out my Sketch Club membership. Most students can see the light areas, the middle areas, and the dark areas, but they don't differentiate them enough, and often they completely miss this darkest part. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because the darks are the last thing you add, and people get to a point before that where they feel like it's finished enough. Maybe it's a fear of making a mistake and not being able to correct it once you've gone too dark. Or maybe it's because people just perceive the dark areas as a massive dark grey and not a variety of darks, including black. So how do you train yourself to spot those darkest parts? Well, it's all about observation. And in my Sketch Club tutorials, I always tell my students to look for what I call black points. Are there any areas in your subject that are genuinely black or very, very close to it? More often than not, there are. Now, it's easy to do this with a black and white version of your subject because that eliminates the distraction of colour. You want to look for the brightest point and the darkest point. And if you have trouble seeing these, try squinting your eyes to simplify the values. So how do you add the darkest parts to your drawing once you've found them in your subject? Well, very carefully. It's a fine balance between adding contrast and depth to your drawing and adding a big black shape that will overwhelm the rest of your drawing. You'll need to use darker pencils like 2B, 4B, or even 6B. Obviously, when we're using graphite pencils, we're working with a grey medium. We may not be able to get a true black, but we want to be able to get the darkest value out of our pencils that we can. And with the 6B, that's pretty close to black. Build the dark parts up gradually. I only add black at the very end of a drawing when I've already identified where the darkest parts are and I've already shaded them a dark grey first. The black parts are just those final touches to extend the range of values and get more depth and contrast. Sometimes it might seem like you've gone really dark with your shading, but actually you've only got to a dark grey. We're looking at our drawing very closely when we're drawing, and you might be saying to yourself, yes, I've got light, middle, and dark. But here's a little tip. The next time you finish a drawing, take a break from it, like a day or two, and then come back to it with fresh eyes and ask yourself these questions. First of all, is there any black in your subject? And then secondly, have you got those black areas in your drawing? And alongside the black areas, make sure you leave some white. You could even try exaggerating the contrast. So take the dark greys and bring them closer to black. Take the light greys and bring them closer to white. Adding contrast will give your drawings depth, confidence, and style. So don't be afraid to go darker and make your drawings really pop. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already and hit that bell button so you can be notified of any upcoming videos. Happy drawing, and I'll see you next time.